Absolute Tactics Daughters of Mercy is not only a mouthful, but also a turn-based tactics RPG releasing on the 15th of September on PC and Nintendo Switch. And today, we're going to be asking the question, is it good? Now, the information you'll need for this video is that this is my first impressions after around 5 hours of play. I have been playing on the Switch, and I received a free key for the purposes of making this video. Right, let's get started. So, gameplay-wise, what we have here is a fairly standard grid-based battle system, where you'll have to select one of your characters, move them to where you want them to be, and use an attack, a skill, or an item. And some enemies will be weaker to basic attacks, while others will be more susceptible to your skills, as shown at the bottom right corner when you hover over them. And there are a decent variety of enemies, each with different skills and ways to approach them, to keep things interesting. Now you can select and move your characters in any order, and 5 hours into the game I so far have 4 party members to control, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, effectively slotting them into a fairly standard role. For example, I have Sir Arkin, who is very much the tank of the group, with a lot of HP and defense buffing abilities, so you're probably going to want him up front taking the hits. Whereas Rue, the crossbow archer, is much more of a glass cannon. Sure, she does a lot of damage, but just a couple of hits can take her down. However, if you don't like these preset roles for the characters, you can sculpt them more to what you want them to be, by changing their class handbook between missions. This not only changes their abilities, but also their stats, such as defense, health, and amount of skill points, and means that you can set up your party more to your liking. And since every character can have 2 of these class handbooks active, there's quite a bit of customization. Unfortunately, the skills themselves aren't particularly inspired, and there's a lot of skills that offer slightly more range or a different attack pattern, rather than anything too interesting. There are a few, however, that cause status effects on enemies, such as poison, and traps that can interrupt enemies' turns and stop them dead in their tracks when they're triggered. And I hope to see more of that as the game progresses, because these are the skills that add genuine strategy into the way you play. Other than changing your classes between missions, you can also buy new equipment, which handily is not character specific, so you can just give it to whoever you want. And the UI makes it very obvious what the benefits and drawbacks are for each new piece of armor or weapon. And you can buy consumable items while you're at it. Although, unfortunately, you can't buy multiple items with a single button press, and have to go through buying them one at a time. Now, these items are absolutely vital. Missions here are long, and at some point your characters are going to take damage, and likely 1 or 2 of them may get knocked down. So you'll need to bring some meds with you, and divine interventions, which act as revives, to make sure you can bring the whole party through the entire mission. Especially as failing a mission means going right back to the start of the level, which can lose you maybe half an hour's worth of play. And for that reason, I'd also advise you to go for berry bushes and chests, which are dotted around the levels like optional objectives, as they'll give you a few items right now, or at least coins to buy items later. Otherwise though, the game doesn't offer too much in the way of strategic play. There's no friendly fire, which makes positioning a little less important, there's no timer on missions, so going slow and picking off enemies one at a time is the optimal way to play, and there's no real stealth mechanic, with the closest we get being that if you attack an enemy from behind, you get a critical hit. And by the way, that goes for enemy attacks on you too, so be careful which way you end up facing at the end of your turn. It's also quite odd that there's no attacking diagonally in Absolute Tactics, which is something I fell victim to early in my time playing, as I moved in close to the enemy ready to strike, only to be told, nah, you can't attack from there. Most missions are completed by killing every enemy on the board, even when they seem to be more about moving through the level, and the game has a really bad habit of making you think you've completed a mission, only to turn around and say, just kidding, there's actually another set of enemies over here that you need to kill, and that rather throws off your rationing of items and skill points. Overall here, I describe the gameplay as solid though, and it translates fairly well over to the Switch, with the cursor system being quite easy to get used to. So if you're into turn-based games, there's definitely some fun to be had here, and if you do enjoy it enough, there's some optional missions which reward you with strong equipment if you can find the secret in them. But these missions are just maps you've already played, with different enemies in them, so I mostly just stuck to the story missions. On to graphics, and there's not a great deal to say here, but what we have is a slightly weird blend of cartoony characters in a more realistic looking 3D world. It by no means looks bad to my eyes, but is a little bit of a clash of styles. Also, on the Switch specifically, the character models look a little low res, but this is likely a limitation of the hardware, and in handheld mode you'll barely notice. If you get the PC version, I'm sure this won't be a problem at all. I would have liked to have seen some more exciting animations for skills, and making it slightly more obvious when a character has a status effect, like making them green and oozing acid if they're afflicted with poison, would make understanding what's going on in the game much easier, but on the whole the graphics here get the job done. Story-wise, well, I always try to avoid spoilers in these videos, and Absolute Tactics makes that an easy task for me, as despite reading everything the game has thrown at me, I don't fully understand what's going on here. Although, of course, if you truly want to avoid spoilers, maybe turn off now. But all that matters as far as I'm concerned is that we are the good guys, and there are a bunch of bad guys attacking innocent people. Our main character, Huxley, is clearly some kind of chosen one for this fight, as right before things kick off, he suddenly starts hearing a voice in his head, which instructs him on what to do and how to survive. And we quickly get an idea that Huxley himself is a sort of naive kid who wants to be the hero instead of having other people protect him. Now, there are some questions the game raises that could lead into an intriguing storyline about why these innocent people are being almost harvested, so I'm hopeful that as the game progresses, we'll get more information as to what's going on. I will say here that there was one very odd moment when the main bad guy has the hero in a position where he could just kill him and be done with it, and he quite literally says to the hero something along the lines of, "You think you're somehow going to get out of this and go on to thwart me? Well, this isn't one of those kind of stories, I am going to kill you." And then he proceeds to just let us leave completely unharmed, for no good reason whatsoever. Sort of like a really over-the-top, inefficient Bond villain. It was like the game was mocking the standard cliches of a certain kind of storytelling, and then went ahead and did it anyway. So overall on the story front, there's the beginning of a potentially engaging story here, but after my 5 hours of play, it's yet to really kick into gear. And finally, before we render an opinion on the overall state of Absolute Tactics Daughters of Mercy, I have one small issue I want to mention. In this preview build, I did come across a couple of missions that were impossible to complete without dev commands, due to enemies being invulnerable or events not triggering. But I emailed the devs about this and was assured that there will be a day one patch, and this will not be a problem with the release version of the game. I just always feel it's necessary to tell you this kind of stuff, as I can only tell you about the game I've played, and that was my experience. I have no reason to doubt the devs on this one though, and it shouldn't be a problem when you're looking to buy the game. So finally then, Absolute Tactics Daughters of Mercy. Is it good? Yeah, it's pretty fun. There's a good amount of content here with a lot of depth added by the equipment and class-changing mechanics, and the gameplay itself is fun and tactical enough that you actually have to think about your moves. For me, I'm glad I got the Switch version, as it's the perfect game to play in bed in short bursts, one battle at a time. And if the £19.49 pricing shown on Nintendo's website is accurate across the Switch and PC, I think it's worth a look. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.